15 Minutes with Judi. I'm so pleased to have you all with us today, but even more pleased by a special guest, David Hare. David, it's great to have you with us today. For people that don't know David, he has been a phenom in our industry, over 30 years of experience, running world-class service delivery organizations. So the likes of Deltek, Oracle, PeopleSoft, Redback, Aspect Communications.
Thank you,
So
Judith, for the kind words. And for those of you who don't know, I did have the opportunity to work directly with Judith for years, and I came to know and appreciate the skills and, more importantly, the passion that she brought to this segment of the industry.
Oh, thank you so much. You learn from good leaders, and you were a great leader in my life. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we're going to talk a minute about you and your legacy. You have, as I mentioned, 30 years, and that in our industry is a long time, right? We know that a lot of people bounce into support, and maybe it's their starting place, maybe it's the place that they go. A lot of people don't stay in the industry as long, right? It's a hard industry for sure to be a part of. But tell me about you and what you think about that you will leave to all the future leaders, and how do you hope to inspire the leaders coming up after you, David?
Well, thanks for the question, Judith. And the thing that always amazed me is there isn't really a track to become a professional support or indoor services person. It's kind of like you have to find it as your passion. So you got to really care about solving problems and about helping people. And I used to be a tech support person on the phone, and I can remember back many years ago where I was the least technical person on my team, but I had the highest customer satisfaction ratings because I cared and I kept my promises and I made commitments to customers. And if I couldn't make those commitments, I would let them know proactively that's going to be another day or another 2 or another hour. And so when I kind of got that into my DNA, I said, there's got to be more people like this that really care, and they're not super, super technical, but they have the ability to learn the product and to learn the market space that we're in. And so I took it on as my task to say, let me help become a better leader so that I can help develop leaders. And it's been very, very rewarding. And one of the most rewarding things that I try to pass on to others is that when a person calls you for a problem in a tech support arena, you're like the only person that can solve that customer's problem. I mean, when I was at Oracle, you couldn't call SAP to have them solve your problem. You had to call our team. And so when I took it upon myself to transfer that commitment to the employees that they're calling you because you're the only one that can get their company back up and running, it started initiating a huge swell of pride within the organization. And I think it actually helped everybody feel better about it, to the point where people, and I've heard this a number of times, would go home and tell their family, hey, I helped Johnny get back up and running and their system was down and they said, thank you very much. And for somebody to have that level of pride to go home and talk to their family about what they did in their day-to-day job gave me immense pride as well. So it just kind of kept feeding the wheel.
Yeah, that's so important, because we say it, and I think, we've tried for many years to get away from it, but we always come back to support can be a thankless job, right? You go from problem to problem. You go from, perhaps disgruntled customer to disgruntled customer. And at the end of the day, it's the people relationships that you're building that matter the most. And the leadership sets that tone. And if a leader is managing, let's say, only to metrics, that's what you're going to get, that kind of assembly line behavior. But if you can insert the people part of it and the pride, I love hearing that word, because I think in a thankless role, sometimes it's hard to be proud of what you do day in and day out.
Absolutely. I mean, I would tell people almost during an interview, I said, if you solve a really, really difficult problem that nobody else on your team can solve, your reward is we give you 10 more. So,
Isn't that the
if
truth?
you,
Yeah.
and so if you can live in that environment, you're going to thrive beyond your wildest imagination.
I've often said, the sad part about support and sometimes the lack of visibility they have in companies is they show up for, let's say, the QBRs or the, annual kickoffs, and the focus is on metrics. And we maybe look at the one that turned red, and the question is all about the red, right? It's not about everything else that's green. And, there is metric madness, I think, in a lot of support organizations. And, you measure and inspect, but at the same time, if you overly direct your team only on the metrics, it can be debilitating for the team. Tell me some of the things that you've worked on that go beyond the support metrics. Tell me what success for you looks like when you look at a well-run support organization.
Well, I think you hit part of the biggest problems and challenges that we all face in leadership positions is that the rest of the company only knows about two or three metrics. If you talk to the CFO, it's renewal rates. If you talk to the CEO, it's customer satisfaction. If you talk to marketing, it's the number of referrals. So they each have their own little metric. So I really believe as a leader in these organizations, in the support organization, your job is to upsell to the rest of the company the value that you bring to the company. I mean, if you look at, a couple of the companies that we worked with, right? They were $1 billion, $100 million, tens of millions of dollar revenue streams for the company. And nobody ever looked at that. They just looked at, oh, well, your customer satisfaction slipped. Yeah, I know, but I saved 15 customers that were each paying $100,000 a year, and we got another $1.5 million from them annually. And they're like, oh, really? I didn't know you did that. And it's like, they don't know what we do. They don't realize all the hard work, effort, and care that goes into making those numbers or making our customers successful.
So you're advocating for current leaders and future leaders to really be evangelists for what they and their team do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's become more and more um, important, especially in the SaaS world, where customers can a lot of times have an easy way to just move to another platform. But if you have a really good service organization, regardless of what the platform is they're on, they're going to stay with you. And it's
Yeah.
our job to figure out how do we communicate that effectively up the ladder and to the rest of the company. And
Yeah.
so if you can do that, and you have, instead of you and I being the evangelists, you and I in engineering and marketing and sales be the evangelists, all of a sudden, everybody that works in our entire organization just got elevated to a more important role within the success of the company.
Absolutely. And reaching across those, swim lanes, right? We're all in a lane,
Yeah.
but reaching across and being able to work with those other leaders and having them be evangelists for your team as well. I think the natural friction that exists will always be there, but whether it's between sales and support or product and support, but focusing on those relationships is really important too.
Yeah, I think another important thing that you can do is find out what the success criteria is of the organizations that you work with, and then go do something about that to make sure that they're meeting that. I mean,
Yeah.
I can remember I just started at one company. I was the vice president of global support. And I met the VP of engineering, and I put my arm around his back and I said, thank you very much. And he looked at me and he said, well, for what? I said, for job security. And he said, what are you talking about? I said, do you know how many tickets my organization created today? And he said, no. I said, none. We created none. They were all caused by products. We're here to make the product look good. And
Yeah.
from then on, we were like best buddies
That's
because
awesome.
he knew that he could come to my organization, not just me, but my organization, and find a way to, hey, what are customers saying about this feature? Hey, what are customers saying about the documentation? Hey, what are customers saying about the online education? And as long as you've already built that relationship, the feedback that you give them is going to be seen as positive, and they're going to go do something about it, which in
Yeah,
turn helps you out considerably.
without a doubt.
Yeah.
So we can't have all good news in a session like this. What is one of the things you remember in your career being, a hard obstacle that you had to work through? Any specific examples that you're willing to share?
I think that it wasn't necessarily like a technical issue. It was more of a community issue. So there was a time where there was a problem with the product and it affected a very large number of customers. And one of them found at the time it was a community. Now it would still be seen as kind of social media. And they went on social media and just blasted
Mm.
how crappy this product was and how terrible the support was, and don't do it, don't sign up, make them give you a discount. And it was like one customer that had one problem,
Mhm.
and the CEO and the head of sales came down to me and they just lambasting me because my support team was terrible. And
Yeah.
so what I had to do is actually put that in perspective. And it's amazing how the rest of the company, to follow the thread earlier, just doesn't know, like, we would take 100,000 calls a year and we would solve 999,000 really, really well. And there would be three. And those are the ones that I would point out to the rest of the team is that, did you forget about the 999 we already fixed and resolved? And so I made it my mission to make sure that I pushed upwards all of the good things that were happening on a regular basis so that when the bad thing happened, like the CEO would get a call and say, your product stinks and I can't use it and everything. Listen, sir, ma'am, you've had this one problem. I'm going to put my best person on it. But we solved 90,000 calls today in less than 1 hour, and we're going to take care of yours as well. So don't worry about it. And just having them armed with that information diffused the whole situation. But it wasn't fun. It was
No.
tense.
Yeah, I'm sure it was tense. You and I lived through a couple of those together at
We did.
Oracle, and I'll never forget, as long as I live, the one time a customer appeared on the front page of the Wall Street Journal talking
Yeah.
talking about Oracle and Oracle support, and
Yeah.
that was go time, right? That you don't want to
Yeah.
be on the front page of that newspaper for, something like that.
No, not at all. You want to be on the front page of the newspaper for the problem that you solved for them, but those things are kind of expected. You're expected to do that. And if you go above and beyond the call of duty, it still could potentially be expected. But again, as leaders, I think it's your role to make sure that you push all of the good things uphill all the time. And I think you got to be selective too, because what's good for sales isn't good for engineering, right?
Right.
And so when you can go to sales and say, hey, by the way, I turned these three customers around and they're willing to be references for you and they're willing to come to our user group and come on stage, all of a sudden they're carrying you away on on their shoulders, which is great.
Absolutely. Kind of back to your theme there, being the evangelist for your organization and your people, right? You have a reputation in our industry as being an
Mhm.
empathetic leader. You've touched many of us in many ways throughout our careers. And, we would say we're here because of working under your tutelage for years. Tell me what you would have to do besides the evangelist part. What
Mhm.
did you do to keep empathy directly front and center in how you were leading your teams, David?
Well, I think the most important thing that you can do is talk to customers. And the second most important thing you can do is talk to more customers. And the third most important thing is talk to even more customers. So, one of the things that helped me out considerably was kind of chairing a user group for a couple of different companies. And so, one of the things I would tell my support folks is that when you're looking for a new job or you're looking to go move up within your existing company, the more customer references you have, the more valuable you are to me. Because if your peer recognizes you, yeah, you're buddies and you go drinking together and you each take turns recognizing each other. But when a customer recognizes you, you know that you've gone above and beyond the call of duty. So go out of your way to have as many customer interactions and don't wait for the negative ones to come. you'd be very, very surprised at how surprised customers are when I would make it a mission of mine every single week to call a customer out of the blue and ask them how they're doing. Now, I would be prepared to say, yeah, I know you had 17 cases, but did you know that on average we solved them in less than 32 minutes and that we prevented these 10 cases because we proactively reached out to you from happening? And when you talk to customers like that, I mean, they're yours for life. You know, I really found that those customers, and you can actually go and track it, is that when it comes renewal time, they're the ones that renew the quickest, and they're also the ones that don't ask for any discount during renewals as well. So
Yeah.
making them an evangelist for you, they then go out and you can say, if you have an issue with the community and one person that's having a real bad problem, you go get your other 3 customers that are references for you and say, could you post something about this topic that this customer is ranting about? And all of a sudden, 3 more customers say, this guy's crazy. I don't know what he's talking about. I've had really good experiences and stuff. You just have to smile and brush your hands and say, team, that's how it's done.
Right. That's great advice. And I hope a challenge to our listeners is take that upon yourself, right? Start with one customer once a week, start with one
Absolutely.
customer every 2 weeks, right? But start somewhere
Yeah,
and start making
sure.
those rewards. Yeah.
I mean, 10 tech support folks on the phone calling one customer a week. You know, you've got a bunch of customers that are now happy, and you do that for 52 weeks, and all of a sudden you've got 500, 5,000. And like you said, it doesn't have to be the leadership team. It certainly should be everybody up and down the organization. We had a support organization in a location that was mostly just support, but some of the executives would go and visit there, and I made them sit on the phone for 2 hours and listen to calls while they were there. And then I developed a form that said, I need you to fill out this form to tell me what your experience was like, what you liked about it, and what you would do different. And all of a sudden, you get the CMO and you get the CFO who are like, I didn't know this customers yelled at you. I didn't know that it was this difficult. I didn't know you worked this hard. Let me talk to engineering and see what I can do about it. Let me give you, heaven forbid, more headcount, and so that you can do the job even better. But the more that you can integrate the rest of the company into your goals, your missions, your objectives, the more successful you'll be.